Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So hello and welcome to our first BD Research Club webinar. Today will be part demo, part tutorial for new users. I personally have a tendency to go fast to make sure we cover all the features. So please at any time, feel free to interrupt with questions, or if you want me to go in depth, to go more in depth with a feature. However, I'm realizing I think you are all muted. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm not sure how to unmute. So feel free to, should be able to in the bottom bar. Let's see. Bottom bar under participants. Okay, sorry. So I'm seeing that the attendees can't unmute during webinar, so please use the chat. So now that we've settled that, I'm going to go ahead and carry on. So this webinar is being recorded, and you should be able to view the recorded version on the FlowJo website. So I just want to share where that is. So here we are. So if you go to the FlowJo website under the Learn tab, there's webinars. And so it shows the schedule of upcoming webinars. We are here at the BD Research Cloud one. If you scroll down, then you can see explore previously recorded webinars. So you can go back here and see this recording will show up in just a little bit, but if ever you're interested in other topics, past webinars are all available there. And as well, I wanted to point out that under the Learn instead of webinars, if you go to FlowJo University and you scroll down to BD Research Cloud, select there, you will have access to short tutorials that guide you through different features. So if ever at the end of the webinar, you forgot how to do certain things, I know that they're pre-recorded short little videos that you have access to there as well. So what is BDRC? So BDRC is a new product that recently launched just last month. Currently, it's only available to US customers. However, we will be having regular releases that include new features, and we will be expanding the regions where it will be available. So new features and improvements will be guided by user feedback. So please give it a try and let us know what you think. And let's start. So what is BD Research Cloud? In short, it's an online tool for flow cytometrists to connect the various components of the flow cytometry experiment all together from start to finish. So features include creating FACS-DIVA acquisition experiments away from the cytometer, uploading and saving cytometer configuration so everyone can easily have access to it for panel design and also for acquisition experiment setup, saving population definitions for faster panel design, panel creation tool that integrates with the cytometer and population resources. You can also store your data in BD Research Cloud and connect to FlowJo Software. And you can also create experiment workflows to keep track of who did what and when within the lab. And also you have the option to assign tasks and due dates. So let's get into the demo. Let's go here. I'm gonna just stop my video here and then go to BD Research Cloud. Perfect. So if you go to bdresearchcloud.com, this is the login page. If you already have a FlowJo portal ID, so what you would use to log into FlowJo with through the portal account, these are the exact same credentials. So you'd use your username, which is the email, and your password, and you click sign in. You don't have to have an active FlowJo license account for this to work. So if you already have a portal account, just go ahead and put in those credentials. If you have never created a portal account, then just go down here and create account. So when you first log in for the very first time, usually you will land at this individual org page. So this is for you and you alone. There's no collaboration here, and you cannot invite other users to your individual organization. So as a new user, what I recommend is if you plan to share and collaborate within a lab, that you go ahead and create an organization And so by clicking here under your name, create an org. So this is the individual one that gets automatically created when you first log in. Then you go ahead and create a free account. The Essentials account is a shared one that you can have up to 10, so 9 additional users to collaborate together. There are additional tiers, professional and premium, that can upgrade to, that you have access to additional features. So let's go ahead and jump to my collaborative org. So this is my org that I share with other people. As a new user, what I encourage people to do is to go and set up your groups and your projects first when you first log into your BDRC account. What we call a group in BDRC is individuals who work together on one or more projects. So within BDRC, you can create unlimited groups, and users can belong to one or more groups. So when you belong to a group within an organization, so this is a group, my tuberculosis grant, within the group, you have one or more projects. So anyone that belongs in this group will have access to all the data for the different projects. And then here under users, so once you've set up your groups and your projects based on your lab's organization, you can go ahead and invite people. So this was people, users, you click invite, and then you add their email addresses. You can add individual or multiple users at once. You select which group you want to add them to, and then you also assign permissions. Okay, so that was the People's tab. So we covered groups and projects and also users. Next, we'll jump over to the Resources tab. Within BDRC, you can upload your cytometers, and this integrates with other functionality. So to add your cytometer, in my lab, I've already saved several cytometers. If I click on it, I will see its profile and its configuration. To add a new cytometer to your organization, you just go up to the Create button while you're in the resource. So Resource Cytometers, and hit Create. And there's different ways to create a cytometer within BDRC. If you have a BD instrument, what we recommend is to import a BD FACS-DIVA file. So you would export this from the cytometer itself and import it here. And then you know that you have perfect duplication of your current cytometer setup at this point. So you just assign a lab location, and then when you finish, it gets saved into your organization in BDRC. Another way to add a cytometer is to add a public cytometer. So this would be in the case where a core lab sets up several cytometers and you want to have access to them. So in this case, the core lab would make their cytometers public, and then you'd be able to search for it here. So in this case, if I'm interested in the Fred Hutch instruments, I select the core lab I'm interested in. I select the cytometer and I say, yes, this is the one I want to be able to use to design panels or to set up acquisition experiments. So I just press link. And then down here, we see that the cytometer has now been added to my organization. If I'm using someone else's cytometer, in this case, a public cytometer, I do not have access to modify the configuration, right? So there's no risk of me going in and changing this accidentally. Only the cytometer owner has that privilege. I can modify my own cytometers that I've uploaded myself, but not the shared ones. And then the last option here, so either you import your FACS-DIVA file, you add a public cytometer from a shared resource lab or a core lab. The last one is create a custom cytometer. So if you have a cytometer that doesn't have the traditional, so you can select a base cytometer from all the BD ones, and then if it doesn't have, if your cytometer is a custom one that doesn't come with the default configurations that are pre-loaded in BDRC, you can do that there. Or alternatively, you can skip the search for base, and if you have a competitor cytometer from any other company, you can just add it here. So you just add the name of the cytometer, the serial number, and then what you would do is add the configuration manually, where you input the lasers and the filters manually. And then you have the option to make this public or not, right? If you were the core lab and you input your cytometer, you decide if you want to share it for other people to find or not. So that was the adding the cytometer functionality. Next, we're going to briefly explore the populations resource. So this is where you define a population based on a set of markers that you want to use in a panel. So BDRC comes with preloaded definitions of common cell types. So this is meant to help maybe new users who aren't sure which markers to include in their panels. But the nice part is that you can also create your own population. So if you're always using the same set of markers to identify a cell type that you're interested in your lab, you can create it here and then use it over and over when you're creating panels. So down here, I created my own. So if I just click on it, we can see I made an EJ, Treg, and then I assigned markers to define this population. I also assigned antigen density information if they were negative for any kind of markers and so on. And so this population, we'll see later, it gets integrated in the panel creation process, along with the cytometer as well. So you can see how the different tools integrate with each other. And that's the whole point. It's supposed to save time. So you're not inputting the same information over and over again. There's one place to save it, and then you can just easily click on it and move on with your experiment. So the next resource is reagents. So within reagents, there are different tabs. Here is the BD catalog. So it shows all the reagents that are available through the BD catalog to you. In custom reagents is where you can add reagents that are not included in the BD catalog. So if you create any in-house tetramers, or if you have antibodies from a competitor, you can add them here, and you will be able to use them in the panel creation process. The only thing is currently you can only add antibodies for which the fluorochrome information is known to BD. So any fluorochrome that BD uses, you can create a custom reagent. However, like I said, we're going to have regular releases of BDRC. And so in the future, we hope to add information about competitor fluorochromes in here. We just have to jump through a few legal hoops to make sure everything gets approved first. So the combination of the BD catalog and the custom reagents, so these two sections is what the panel creation process will search for available reagents for you. So you can include any reagents in this point that you have. For the spectrum viewer tool, this is nice if you're just curious to know the fluorochrome profile of a particular reagent. So in this case, let's just put CD3 BV421, for example. So if I press the plus little button, it gets added to the selected reagents. And then in the spectrum viewer, I can look at different cytometers that are available to me. And it'll show me the exact configuration of these cytometers. And by clicking on the different laser lines, I'll see the fluorochrome profile of my selected reagents. So if I wanted to add, let's say, add a PE-Sci5 reagent. And so back here, when I click on the different laser lines, it shows me the full curve shows primary, emission from the primary laser. So in this case, BV421 is getting primarily excited by the violet laser. In the blue here, I see a dashed line. That means I'm getting spillover from a fluorochrome. So in the blue laser, I'm getting spillover coming from a PE-Sci5, which is assigned here to the 561 yellow laser. So that's just a way to look at fluorochrome profiles using your cytometer configurations. So in the reagent section, this is just meant to look at individual fluorochromes or a short list of fluorochromes just for your information. And then the last tab here is the My Inventory. So this is where you can keep track of all the reagents that are currently in your lab. So you can see here I added, two custom and tetramers, so tetramer X and tetramer ABC. I'll add those to my panels later. So My Inventory is a premium feature at this point for BDRC. If you order BD catalog reagents, you can easily look them up here and then add to inventory with a one-button click. So that's the reagents resource. So before I jump into the experiments, let's go ahead and create a panel, and I'll show you how it all integrates together. So if I go to research, workflows and panels, this is the section where I can either create an experimental panel or I can either create an experimental workflow or a panel. So in this case, I'm going to create a panel. So let's go ahead. So create a panel, and then it asked me to save a project. So that's why I recommend that you set up your projects and groups ahead of time, so that when you're saving information, it already gets saved in the proper spot. It's organized. So I'm going to go ahead and save it under my COVID Grant 1 project. If I had a previously completed panel and I just want to make a few modifications, I could put it here. But for today's purpose, I will go ahead and just create a new panel from scratch. So step 1 is to select the cytometer I want to use for my panel. So in the drop down, it'll show me all the cytometers that I've uploaded in the cytometer resource. I also have the option to include all BD instruments if I'm interested in doing some research. Alternatively, you just leave it to the cytometers that are currently available to you in your lab. So I'm going to go ahead and select the A5. If there was more than one configuration that I had saved, which is an option to do, I would select which configuration I'm choosing to build this panel with. So here it shows me which cytometer I have selected. If I'm curious to confirm, yes, that's the one I want to move forward with. So you can expand and double check that that's the cytometer you want to use. You can go ahead and complete step. But before doing that, I just wanted to point out that you can assign different tasks. So because this is a workflow, you can assign certain tasks to people. So if you're collaborating on a single project where different people do different parts of panel design or experiment workflows, this is where you could assign different people, and they would get a notification saying, hey, can you go ahead and complete this? Or if you wanted to get reviewed by someone before moving on, you could tag them here and they would get a notification that there's something for them to look at in BDRC. So step 1, so that we've selected our cytometer. Step 2 is where you define your markers that you want to create your panel with. So you have several options here. So first, I'm going to select my target species. I could do the traditional approach of just adding one marker at a time, right? So CD3, yes, and then click add antigen. And then you can carry on like that and adding one antigen at a time. Or if, like I mentioned in the population resource, you can add several markers at once. So let's say if I look up my custom custom population that I created, I can pull it up here and say add population, and it went ahead and added all of these for me at once. I can also add my custom tetramers, for example, that I included in the custom reagent, in the custom population. Oh, this was the reagent, sorry, custom reagent section. If I wanted to also have a viability die, I just click this toggle on. If you have restrictions about what type of reagents you want to include in your panel, you go to advanced options and you can select or restrict the type of reagents that you want to build the panel with. And it also shows you here that you're currently using 9 colors out of the 30 available channels to you. So it kind of keeps you in check as to what other modifications you can do. So if you made a mistake, you can always trash one or more marker at once. If you have clone specificities, you always want to stick to a particular clone. You can make that selection at that point. If you want to create a dump channel, so put more than one marker in using the same fluorochrome. So here are my B cells, so CD19 and 20 that I'm not interested. I'm going to check the exclusion check mark so that they'll both be put with the same fluorochrome color. On the right here, you have the option to assign antigen density. This is completely optional. I could move forward with the step now if I wanted to. And then you also have the option to add different populations of interest with different antigen densities. For today's purpose, I won't spend too much time here, but just know that it's an option. Again, you have the option to assign this task to someone if you need someone else to review it. If not, you can just go ahead and complete. Step 3, so it is showing me in the Spectra viewer the exact configuration of the cytometer I selected, and down here shows my my markers that I've selected, and it's showing variable density because I have 2 different populations that I've selected. In this case, so if I click on an antigen, it shows me all the colors that are available to me based on either the BD catalog or my custom reagent section that's in the reagent sections. So if I click on CD3 and I click on the different fluorochromes, I get to see where they show up based on my cytometer configuration. If I scroll down, this pops to the side, so I can keep going here. Again, if you click on the different laser lines, it shows you that the full curve is the primary emission from that laser. A dashed line shows cross laser spillover. The different antigens here can be sorted either by antigen name, antigen density, or fluorochrome availability. I personally like to do fluorochrome availability, and you can do high to low, low to high. So this shows me that my tetramer comes in the fewest available colors. It only comes as APC based on my custom reagent. So I know that I have to put this guy in APC. So I'm going to go ahead and pair it. So once I've paired it, it moves away from this bottom section up to the top section, which are my paired marker and fluorochrome pairs. If I made a mistake, I can unpair it and try to pair it to something else. Once paired, the spectrum becomes static, so it no longer disappears as I click away. And so as I'm adding more fluorochromes to this, so FOXP3, if I click around, I can see what interaction it might have with my other paired markers. The lasers here can also be sorted either by fluorochrome name, brightness, or laser. Let's go ahead and do brightness for fun. High to low, so brightest to low dimmest. If I've already paired something, so here I've already paired something with APC, the red box shows me that the peak filter is the same, so it's not recommended to use this, so it's a little bit of a warning box. If I don't want to see this warning box, I can say, no, don't show me anything I've already paired. So this kind of takes it out of view, so it's not in the way. So let's go ahead and make a pairing. I'm going to make this pairing. For viability dye, I can click around and see where it might show up based on my cytometer. Let's go ahead and click this one. If I've made an exact pairing match, so I've already selected up here RB780, it will show up as hash. So this is an exact match. So it's not only the same peak filter, but it's the exact fluorochrome. It shows up as hashed and already paired. It shows up down here, letting me know that if I were to unpair it up top, I could select this one for this marker. If I don't want to see it and it's just confusing, I can hide it away. So I'm just going to make random pairings at this point. Please forgive me if this panel does not make sense at the end, but it's just to demonstrate the functionality of it. Oh, I see some chat. Sorry, I haven't been really. Q&A, do you include fluorophores from your competitors in your spectral viewer? Not currently, because we don't have the legal permission yet to use other people's fluorochromes, but it is in the works. So BDRC is a product that we will release continuously. And so we hope that that's coming in the near future. Okay. So did I pair everything? No, not yet. Let's finish here. CD8, let's go ahead and pair it here. And then the exclusion channel, because I marked these as dump channel, they're getting paired together and it's showing me which reagents they come available in both colors. So let's just pick this one. So at the end, once everything is paired, you will see how it looks like on your cytometer's configuration. So here you can click, you're seeing that there's primary emission happening here, but there's also spillover coming from other channels. So you can hover over it, see if this is acceptable or not. You can go down and unpair it and move things around and click through the different lasers until you're happy with your final product. So if I'm, yep, this is what I want to go with, I'll click a complete step. And this brings us to the reagents. On this page, you get to choose. So for my CD3 BUV661, if I down click, it shows me what options are available to me. So there's different test sizes and also different clones. So I can scroll down and make the selection there of what I like. So yeah, just clone selection and test size selection is this step. If I continue to step 5, then it's creating the shopping list. If I already have some of these in my lab and I don't want to include them in the reagent list, I can go ahead and click the trash can. So it removed the item. This one I do want to keep. So let's keep the brilliant stain buffer because I don't have any. But let's say I already have the live dead and I already have my tetramer. I don't need to purchase it. But I want to purchase everything else. We can go ahead and finalize the workflow. So this is my finalized shopping list, and there are different ways to share it. So either if you have access to the BD cart functionality, not everyone has access to the BD cart functionality, but depending on your institution's purchasing systems, if you can order directly through BD, you can add it to your cart. And then you log in to get your exact pricing and you can proceed with the checkout. If you don't have access to purchasing through the BD website, you can also email a PDF, download it, or you can also request a quote by pressing this button. Your local reagent rep from BD will get a notification with your shopping list and they'll reach back out to you. So that was the panel creation tool. So once you've created a panel, we can go back to the resources to the experiment section. So this is how you set up an experiment, an acquisition experiment for FACSDIVA away from the cytometer. So let's click here and I'm going to go ahead and create a new experiment. So let's put today's date. Again, assign a project to it. Which cytometer am I planning to acquire on? Let's go again with the FACS Symphony and the correct configuration and the DIVA version. So the DIVA version can be saved when you're creating in the cytometer. If you do that, then it'll come pre-populated. If it hasn't been added, you just add it at this point. If you have a plate loader, you can start with the plate editor view. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and add the experiment. So step 1 is selecting your plate size. Let's go ahead with 96 well U-bottom. And you can go ahead and either select wells and call it, PID 1 or something, add specimen, and there it is. Or let's go ahead and delete it. I like to autofill. So let's say I'm having a 10 by 4. So I select all the wells I'm planning to acquire and select a repeating pattern. So that's what the autofill selected is. So I'll click on that and my specimens are going downwards. So I'm going to select my pattern going vertically. Each specimen has 4 wells. I'm going to skip the prefix. So let's go ahead and click autofill. So now it says specimen 1, specimen 2, specimen 3. So again, a small time saver. If I wanted to change the specimen name, I can. I just click on it. Subject 1, finish editing. If I made a mistake, I just can delete that from the list. So this is the step 1, just identifying the specimens. So I'm going to continue, press save. On this page, so we were at plate, now we're at labels. This is where you add your different labels. And again, BDRC is meant to be a time saver to avoid repeated entries. So if you've already created a panel within BDRC, let's go ahead and select all and select a panel. So I select it here, I apply it. It will correctly add the antigen or the antigens and the fluorochrome combinations to the proper to the proper channels. If I don't want to see the unused ones, I can toggle this, and this shows me the panel that I'm assigning for this plate. You have different visualization options available to you. Let's go ahead and click continue, save, yes. In this section is where you can add additional keywords to your subject. So let's say this was a time course for whatever reason. I'm gonna add time point as a column, and then I can add time point, 2 hours, 4 hours. You get the idea of you can add your extra keywords at this point. You can add more than one keyword. This is really good practice to add your keywords prior to acquisition instead of after. By doing so prior to acquisition, it gets embedded within the FCS file. So, if months later someone opens up your FCS files, they're all labeled correctly, everything's organized, no one's wondering what the sample was. And so we think that's a large benefit of setting up your experiment ahead of time in BDRC when you have time, not when you're rushed sitting in front of the cytometer trying to get your cells acquired. So you can do this during incubation. And again, it's cloud-based, so you don't have to be at the instrument to be setting this up. So next step, which is the last step, is if you know ahead of time which plots you want to have displayed in FACSDiva, we have common selections that you can just check here. There's also an N by N. So if you want to see everything by everything, you can. Or if you just want to see a select few with a couple of custom ones based on your panel, just clicking random ones here, add graph, and you can add those here. When you're happy with this, you just export the experiment. This creates an XML file that then you upload into Diva. So if your cytometer is connected to the internet, you could do this at the cytometer. So you just log into BD Research Cloud, download your XML directly on the cytometer computer, and then just upload it to Diva. If it's not connected, you just take your XML file from your workspace and then bring it over to FACSDiva and upload it there, and it's a time saver. So that was the experiment setup. So we went through cytometers, populations, reagents, experiments, and we also went through panel creation here. The last one that I didn't go through yet is the experiment workflow. And so here I'm showing you one that's almost completed. So it's an influenza phenostain run 1. So you create the workflow ahead of time, and then as people complete it, they click the steps. So in this case, I had a thaw and count cell procedure step. Step 1 is thaw cells, and it was performed by my colleague Dan here. If I click on it, I can see when he did it. If there are any additional notes, there are options to allow file uploads. So if there was any cell counts or anything like that that he wanted to order, or media lot, you can add additional fields that you want your users to fill out every time, like maybe the lot number of the media used to thaw. You can include all of that in your experiment setup. So the whole point of this experimental workflow is just to keep track of who did what when, so that when you revisit this, this experiment or the data from this experiment, and maybe things look a little bit weird or look great, or why did this experiment look better than this one? You can go back and see exactly who did what when, and maybe figure out why this experiment looks the way it does. And so you can see again timestamps of who did what when. And then this is all completely customizable. You can make this as detailed or as generic as you want for your users. And then at the last part, you can acquire the cells, and you can upload and save your FCS files here within your experiment. So your data is linked to your actual experiment, and you know how these cells were treated and how they were stained and acquired. to keep everything nice and organized. So this is the main functionality of BDRC. I'm now going to jump over to FlowJo to demonstrate how it connects to BDRC. So I'm just, oh yeah, I have to share. Stop sharing here, and I'll just share my whole screen so that you'll be able to see FlowJo. Okay. So I have a FlowJo portal account, right? So that's what is my license type for FlowJo. You do not have to have a portal ID for FlowJo to connect to BDRC. If you have a serial number license or a dongle license, that's fine. It will also work. Great. So once I'm in FlowJo, there's different buttons that connect to BDRC. So for example, this top button, if I were to press it, just opens up a tab in my browser to bring me to BD Research Cloud. So that's this button up here. So they're all going to look like this little BD symbol. I can add samples here, add samples from BD Research Cloud. I can open a workspace from BD Research Cloud. I can save this workspace as a workspace to BD Research Cloud. So there's a lot of functionality here that connects everything. So just as demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and add samples from BD Research Cloud. So by clicking this button, it'll connect to BD Research Cloud. It does so automatically here because I've connected through Portal. If you don't have, if you have a different types of license, the dongle or the license, it would just ask you to log into BD Research Cloud at that point to connect. Up top are the orgs. So let's go to my organization of my lab. And let's say I want to find my FCS files. In titrations, for example, I can say I want to upload these files, go ahead and add them. They get added to FlowJo. I can, perform my analysis, all that. Wonderful. Once I'm done, I would just go and save as to BD Research Cloud. Again, it wants to know where do I want to save it. Let's go ahead and save it in titrations, give it a name, sure, today's date. And click save. And so in the future, if I want to open this again, I would just go to, let's close this one. What do I want to do? I want to be able to close this one, sorry. Save changes, yes. Okay, and then let's say I wanted to open a new one, open from BD Research Cloud. Titrations, today's, go ahead and open it. Let's download it. So the connectivity of FlowJo to BDRC, it connects to BDRC, and anytime you want to use something, it downloads it locally. So when I connected to BDRC, it downloaded these FCS files and cached them locally. So now every time I go back to perform this analysis, I don't have to re-download them. They will be on this computer. If I change computers, they'll have to come and re-download again. But the latest version of this FlowJo software, of this workspace, will be saved in BDRC, and I'll always be working from the same workspace. Let's see. So that's all I had for today. Unfortunately, right. I didn't realize that you would all be muted. So I'm leaving this open for Q&A. Veronica, is there anything? I haven't been looking in the chat. Is there something that people wanted me to look back into? Right. Veronica's telling me she can unmute. Yeah, if you just want to write it either in Slack or in the chat, if there's a topic that I can go more into depth. Some questions in the chat. Let's see. Any special, sorry, I'm going to start bottom up. Any special instructions for core facilities? Something I haven't noticed is the recurrent workflow option. So let's go. So when you're creating a workflow, right? So workflows and panels, instead of create panel, we go to custom workflow. If we go to create, this is, let's say, LSR2 daily morning clean and QC. As an example now, is if we're using BDRC as a core lab or something like that. So description, you know, same as that. Project, daily AMQC is a group I created for this org. So I'm showing a different organization now, just so you know. And then do I want to enable notes on here? Sure. Do I want to enable file uploads? Sure. Do I want a panel creation design? No, this is a QC clean. So let's go ahead and design this workflow. So new procedure, you know, startup, let's call it. Trials is if you wanted to repeat this more than once, like if you have to do 2 cleans or something, you could add a repeat step here, a due date, if you want to assign a date to it. If not, I'll just go ahead and call it the startup. And if there were the different steps of the startup, you know, apologies, turn on lasers, lasers for 10 minutes or 5 minutes to warm up is a generic example of this step. So this is where I could provide either instructions here on what to do and how. If I wanted to assign it to someone at this point every day, Tim, every morning, I need you to start the lasers up. If I wanted to allow additional inputs, sure, tell me if it passed or failed this first time. Sorry, this is not making much sense, but you get the idea. Save, so turn on lasers, and then the other one, QC, run beads. Again, I could assign it to someone and then input. So this would make more sense to save it there, pass fail. So let's go ahead and edit this one and remove the pass fail because that doesn't make sense there. So turn on lasers, run beads, fantastic. So these are the steps within this procedure, which is startup. We can add another procedure of log, you know, QC report in, you know, just log the QC report. Create, fantastic, and then save file. And then I make sure that they have the ability here to upload files on the step. So startup has 2 steps, turn on, run beads, then log the file. If I'm happy with this, I go ahead and submit it. It's ready to start. And if I wanted to make this recurrent, I would create a study. Let me just double check something. So create a study. There we go. And so recurring schedule here. So do I want to do this daily, weekly, monthly? So let's go ahead. It's a daily recurrence. You know, if there's a specific time zone that you want to say, okay, it must be done by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. every day. You set the due date, and this is optional, and go ahead and submit. And so now it's a recurring workflow that once it's completed, a new one will show up the next day. And then as users fill it out, it'll keep track of who did the clean that day, who, you know, performed the QC, what QC bead law, if you made that a mandatory field, was used that day. And then you can also upload your QC report in here and have a record of it for the day that's accessible from anywhere. So that's an example of how core labs can use the workflows and recurrent workflows. So here has the little recurrent workflow item to show you that it's repeating every day. Let's see. Do we have the option to export the reagents inventory to XLS files? Yes. So let's see if we go to reagents, my inventory. Yes, you have the export and you also have the import functionality here. No problem. Okay, let's see. Can you name and rename specimens and tubes within BDRC? There is no spectral functionality at this point, but BDRC will have regular releases, so we hope that that's a new feature that we'll include. So if there's changes made in Diva while acquiring, will it sync? So BDRC exports an XML. So we're talking about the acquisition. So the resource experiments. So if you create a FACS-Diva experiment template, there's no live connectivity. So when you're on Diva, it's not connected to BDRC. What you're doing is you're creating a Diva experiment template in BDRC. You're downloading it and uploading it in Diva. And that point in Diva, you can make additional changes, no problem. There's no syncing necessary, so everything should work just fine. Let's see. Can we rename the subject? So let's say if you created the experiment with generic subject names, export the file, bring it into Diva, and within Diva, you want to rename the file, that should work fine as well. So it looks like most of the questions have been answered. So I guess that's it for today. Thanks, everyone, for coming. If you have further questions, my name up here, Emilie Jalbert. If you want to email me directly, I'm more than happy. So it's firstname.lastname@bd.com. Go ahead and email me if you have questions or if you'd like a demo, if you need help setting up, I'm more than happy to do so. The FlowJo app size as well are fully capable of helping you with that as well. So if you know who your local FlowJo app site is, you can reach out to them as well.